And welcome to the first of our semifinal matches here at the Syracuse Open, sponsored by Ultimate Guard. Ross Merriam, writer over on Star City Games, number 28 on the leaderboard. He's on Dredge, the breakout deck of the tournament. He's on the play, and he has his toughest competition yet. Nick D'Ambrose playing Infect, the 3 seed. Ross, talked to him before the matchup, said he does not like this matchup, but he's got the die roll going for him.
Yeah, and on the topic of Ross being a writer, he was a select writer for quite a long time. He has been moved to the premium side, and his stuff is great.
Ross will start on a Stomping Ground into Insolent Neonate, the common from Shadows over Innistrad. You may notice a lack of cards here in Ross's hand. He mulliganed to 5.
And that's going to hurt the Dredge player a lot less than the Infect player. It's all about whether or not he has a Dredger or what his Dredger finds. His hand size, not generally very important as long as he hits the requisite land drops to cast enablers.
All right, so Nick D'Ambrose makes his turn 1 Bladed Agent, and Ross starts to go dredging. He's going to sacrifice the Insolent Neonate immediately, discarding Golgari Grave Troll and dredging it. And what a dredge it was. 2 copies of Narcomoeba into play and a bridge from below into the graveyard. This is the kind of thing that Ross wanted.
Yes, this is great. Now D'Ambrose's Glistener Elf is looking kind of mopey. If he doesn't have a Blighted Agent on turn 2, this game could spiral out of control.
Yeah, how about this add to that graveyard? Dakmor Salvage was also dredged, so Ross, instead of drawing on a second turn, he's going to go ahead and dredge. Now, only dredge 2 off that card, but Prized Amalgam and Bridge from Below, I think he'll take it.
Yeah, those are okay. If he can find a greater Gargadon to put in Suspend, he can start putting a lot of power on the table.
This is great. So Ross Merriam, 2 Narcomoebas, 4 cards in hand. We know there's a Dakmor Salvage and a Golgari Grave Troll. I'm just going through this interaction here. I believe a judge question from Nick D'Ambrose. There's a lot going on in the dredge deck that you don't see anywhere else.
Yeah.
And Ross, before making a land drop, he will faithlessly loot. And how about a 3rd copy of Bridge from Below and a Prized Amalgam? Those were his pickups.
And the Bridge doesn't really shine in this matchup outside of getting the sacrifice outlet.
Yeah. He's going to discard Amalgam Grave Troll.
So he has the Amalgam in his graveyard that's already going to be on its way in the end step because of Narcomoeba, and that will trigger the other Amalgam to come back on D'Ambrose's end step.
1 Narcomoeba attacks for 1. D'Ambrose down to 16. So no Prized Amalgams into play actually for Ross there. He didn't. No, he hit both Narcomoebas off the Golgari Grave Troll from the Neonate.
Oh, right,
so
right.
they never saw.
Gotcha.
Another Glistener Elf from D'Ambrose, but no land. Ross goes dredging again. Here's Golgari Grave Troll, 6 more cards. And now we see Bloodghast. This could start a chain reaction. Bloodghast, Faithless Looting, Grave Troll.
Yep, and he has a 3rd land.
If he has the land, it's huge. And here we go. Here's Bloodghast. Ross will sacrifice the land, go to 17. 2 of those Prized Amalgams have a delayed trigger for the end step.
And D'Ambrose has all the wrong stuff. Glistener Elves are not going to be able to punch through this. It's just going to take a bunch of pump spells.
Yeah, not to mention he's missing of the land.
Yeah.
So this game is looking like it's all Ross right about now. 5 cards, no problem. We're playing Dredge. Give me a Neonate and a Grave Troll, and I'll conquer the world. Here's Faithless Looting from Ross. And he's going to dredge more. First draw, replaced by a dredge of Golgari Grave Troll. See what else he has. Looks like a Narcomoeba, a Bloodghast, a Stinkweed Imp. Yeah, he'll draw that as a 2nd draw, replacing that with a dredge 2. 5 more cards, 2 more Prized Amalgams.
And this one's looking to be all but over.
Yeah, so that Narcomoeba trigger, Ross gets to dredge both the draws, I believe, before he puts the Narcomoeba into play. So now he gets to put the Narcomoeba into play. He's done resolving Faithless Looting, and all 4 Prized Amalgams are going to see it happen.
Not bad.
Woo! Yeah, let's just not pay for anything. Narcomoeba attacks in. 1 more damage. D'Ambrose at 15. And we'll play 12 Power of Zombies with 3 Bridge from Belows in the graveyard. Go.
Looks plenty lethal to me.
there's no cheesy out, something like Apostle's Blessing, Might of Old Corsa, Might of Old Corsa Tenyu?
Just doesn't have the mana.
Yeah.
A bunch of mutagenic growths. He needs another land. There's nothing he can do without another land.
He'll pass. If he can survive through this turn, maybe he can put together a kill. I don't even know. We go back to Ross's side. He's going to keep dredging away. Deck more salvage into the hand. 2 more cards into the yard. What does he want to do with the army he has built? Well, he can force some chump blocks, it looks like. He has exactly 17 power in play. The Bloodguest can't block.
Right.
Three mana means he has Faithless Looting if he wants it. Ross checking the math. Can he win this turn, or is he going to have to do it next turn? All right. We'll see just how he does this. 1 Narcomoeba back to block. Everybody else comes in.
And this attack forces a chump block with one of the Glistener Elves.
Yeah, it's for 16.
Hanging back the other leaves him a blocker for the other elf should it survive.
So, looks like we have Glistener Elves blocking zombies. Ross, we'll see if he has anything before damage. Right now, Nick is set up to take, enough damage. He's done, and we're on to game 2.
I would be really curious about the contents of D'Ambrose's hand. It's possible that he had a really fast Glistener Elf kill if he caught a land and was just banking on Merriam missing on Narcomoeba. That's what I would.
So if he's on the play, or he's on the draw on 7, say your hand, like the one I described, Glistener Elf and some Might of Old Crosas, you're probably down to keep that on the draw, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would bet against Narcomoeba being able to beat that, and sometimes it just happens. Ross hit 2 early Narcomoebas and also got proactive pretty quickly.
All right, well, we will move on to the second game in just a bit. We're going to look at the sideboards. Nick D'Ambrose will be on the play. He beat this deck last round, but he only ever won games where he was on the play. So, he's on the play this time. Let's look through his sideboard. What does he have?
Copy of Dryad Arbor, a copy of Grafdigger's Cage, copy of Dispel, a Spell Pierce, a Twisted Image, 3 Nature's Claim, 2 Spellskite, a Sylvan Scrying, a Dismember, a Wild Defiant, and 2 Kitchen Finks. Mostly looking at Grafdigger's Cage. That's, of course, an actually very impactful sideboard card here. And I kind of like Spell Pierce. Sometimes you're able to just Spell Pierce Faithless Looting and really hinder Dredge's ability to set up. So I can see that coming in, mostly just looking at the Cage, though. Yeah,
Cage is the real, certainly is the prize. Does things like Kitchen Finks to block, prized amalgams, do we go anywhere with that?
I, in fact, just can't play that game against Dredge.
Right. Ross's sideboard, a full play set of Leyline of the Void. 2 Ancient Grudge, 2 Nature's Claim, 2 Nod of the Bone. I don't think you want that here. 2 Abrupt Decay, an additional Conflagrate, an additional Collective Brutality, and a 1 Dark Blast. He's got tools of his own for this matchup. It was one of his bad ones.
Yeah, Conflagrate, Collective Brutality, Dark Blast, the Abrupt Decays, those all play here. There's some argument for Nature's Claim because they can hit an Inkmoth Nexus as well. Mostly it's those first 5, the things that kind of hit everything.
Yeah.
And the Dark Blast specifically, it's really easy for the Dredge deck to find even through the course of its own proactive game plan.
So now on that note, you said Nature's Claim hits Inkmoth Nexus. That might be a little much, but what about something like Ancient Grudge, which he can hit the Inkmoth Nexus from the graveyard?
You can hit it. Yeah, that one. That's what I meant to say. Yeah, that one you actually just flip over naturally. And he has stuff like Bridge from Below. We saw it. It wasn't a player there. So he has those cards that he really wants to take out. This isn't really where they matter.
Yeah, nothing died, did it? Ross had some bridges, and he never made a zombie?
Yeah, if he had a Gargadon, I believe he could have sped up his clock utilizing those bridges in the Sacrifice Outlet. Though you need to have both of those things happen. And he's got a bunch of stuff he wants to bring in anyway, and you can't board out Dredgers.
Yeah. So we're here in the semifinals of the Syracuse Open. Next week is the conclusion of Season 2. It is the Season 2 Invitational in New Jersey. All these players By virtue of top hitting, they'll be qualified next week and get a chance to win an invite to the Players' Championship and their likeness on a token. Last, they will join in posterity Max McVitie, your Mono White Humans pilot from Season 1, taking down the Season 1 championship. He put his art onto a clue token, and if you want to get your hands on one of these, time is running out. You can get it by playing any Open or Classic on a Star City weekend, but as of next weekend will be your last time to get one in person. So if you can't make it out to that, make sure you put in an order from StarCityGames.com of at least $5 as these ship with every order. It's your last chance to get. This is one of my favorite arts, really.
Yeah, I got another Max Clue token this weekend myself.
It's interesting, we talk about boarding out Bridge from Below in Dredge. So I'm so used to Legacy Dredge, where you'd never touch that card. It does too many broken things for you to ever, like, this is what we do. But we were looking actually at the Dredge deck in Modern, and a lot of people playing it this weekend, was it Tom Ross had 2 Bridge from Belows, some lists had 0 bridges.
Primary difference is incidental sacrifice outlets. You have to draw Greater Gargadon, you flip over Cabal Therapy, you flip over Dread Return.
All right, D'Ambros on the play. Land in a Noble Hierarch. Ooh, Ross, a choice here. Turn 1, just Dark Blast it.
That is really good to have in the opener.
The one-off Dark Blast out of the board shows in the opener. For Nick, he plays an Inkmoth Nexus and passes back. Big play here for Ross. And opts not to dredge. He actually wants a card off the top, and he draws a mountain.
Yeah, figures his odds of actually dying to Inkmoth Nexus this turn are very low. If he can have us like a Faithless Looting and get a Grave Troll or a bigger Dredger in his graveyard, then he'll be able to find a Narca Amiibo more reliably.
I was going to say, I like this. He plays Insolent Neonate. If Nick tries to get too fancy with his pump spells, Ross can, at instant speed, dredge the Dark Blast and shoot the Inkmoth.
Yeah, that's pretty neat, too.
Ross, his 1-2 punch in hand, if he finds the room to cast it, Greater Gargadon and Shriekhorn. Wow.
I don't know Ross to be the type of player that tries to get somebody. I assume if he had a more proactive line, he'd be going for it. Though, representing the Dark Blast for now, I think it's solid.
Activate of Inkmoth Nexus. Ross is going to go ahead and allow 1 poison, as long as Nick doesn't go for any more.
Presumably we'll see an Incept sacrificing and dredging, cast a Dark Blast after you've taken 1 poison so you don't risk taking more in combat.
Yeah, I think he's got the Grave Troll in his hand, so he ideally would dredge the Grave Troll instead, and that's what he's going to do.
Stand corrected. Yeah, he'll be able to dredge the Grave Troll on his following turn. Right now, he just wants to cast a Dark Blast while he has a chance at the Inkmoth.
This is so neat. So on end step, he's going to Dark Blast the Inkmoth. And then he's going to dredge the Grave Troll, or maybe even the Dark Blast next turn?
Yeah, if he doesn't have another Neonate or another draw spell, I assume he's just going to get the Dark Blast back again.
Well, update from our other semifinal. The entire match finishes in 10 minutes. It is Matt Volts playing Red-Green Breach, a quick winner over Chris Anderson. He takes down the 1 seed, and he moves on to the finals.
Yeah, just doing stuff that's a lot bigger than the axis that Jund is fighting on.
So Vines of Acid protected the Inkmoth Nexus. We go back to Ross. He dredges the Dark Blast again, and he gets a Narc Amoeba for his trouble. Also gets a Faithless Looting, Stinkweed Imp, and Bloodghast in the graveyard, so all good. Shriekhorn, the all-star from Mirrodin Besiege, as Ross's play. No land drop, and he passes. That's right. I almost registered this card for a block constructed Pro Tour. It wasn't good there either.
It was real bad.
You were on that team. Yeah.
That deck was unplayable.
If you play a lot of these and you mill Kuldotha the Firebird, you can bring it back with Metalcraft.
Yep, or you can play good artifacts.
Hey man, you gotta dream big. Nick D'Ambros passes the turn, and Ross will mill himself for 2. He untaps and dredges Golgari Grave Troll, and now the goods start coming. He gets a Narc Amoeba, and a Prized Amalgam, and a Conflagrate, and a Faithless Looting in the yard, and mills himself 2 more. Lots of play here. Narc Amoeba into play, delayed trigger for Prized Amalgam.
Yep, and he activates the Shriekhorn with the Narc Amoeba trigger on the stack. Maybe he can catch another Amalgam, something like that.
Narc Amoeba hits Nick down to 15. Prized Amalgam comes back, and we say go. For Matt Volts, He's got to be happy here. Infect is his toughest matchup in the field, and Nick is a game away from being done.
Yeah. Yeah, with Dredge having more or less a turn 5 kind of target for its kill turn, as the Valid good player, you feel a lot better about that matchup.
I could win that one. Yeah, you could win the Dredge matchup. The Infect one, oh boy. That one stinks. Go back to Nick D'Ambrose. He has not made a creature for quite a few turns. Trying to figure out how he can get damage, and he knows there's a Dark Blast in Ross's hand, and Ross is not going to let that one go.
No. The Pendelhaven provides a lot of resilience against the Dark Blast. Though he does have to have more stuff in his hand.
Nick having to decide if it's time yet. He says no. He'll pass back to Ross. Now, the longer this goes on, the more worried he's got to get about Ross flipping an Ancient Grudge, and then he probably, this never works anymore.
Yeah, and just that Narc Amoeba is definitely taunting him. The ability to just soak
well, yeah,
up
just
any amount of pump spells.
Gross. It just blocks flyers. Ross milling 6, gets 2 more prized amalgams into the yard, along with a bridge from below. And it's looking like he may dredge his way into the finals. Only 2 lands for Merriam, but he will go, looks like an attack. He wants to leave back enough blockers. And now Greater Gargadon will be suspended. This is part of the engine with bridge from below. Comes up, suspends with 10 counters. Ross may sacrifice an artifact, a creature, or a land to remove a suspend counter.
Greater Gargadon most commonly seen in cube decks alongside Upheaval.
Ooh, I like that. Stop playing the Restore Balance deck in Modern.
That's less common than a good Upheaval cube deck.
Ross decides on an attack for just 3 with prized amalgam. Wants extra insurance here. Nick will take. He drops to 12.
He definitely wouldn't make sense to block with Inkmoth Nexus.
Back over to Nick. Ross opting not to Shriekhorn on upkeep that turn. Is there a reason for him in this deck to keep a counter on Shriekhorn?
I am failing to think of one.
Back over to Nick D'Ambrose. And plays a Glistener Elf, passes. Let's see if Ross goes for the Dark Blast here. He will Shriekhorn away the last charge counters. Neonate and Grave Troll were milled.
And D'Ambrose really needed Blighted Agent over Glistener Elf.
That was something that we were hearing Ross Merriam and Tom Ross talk about, saying that was the card they were most scared of. Now, when Ross has his one of Dark Blast, that still might not work.
Well, the Pendelhaven on the table says a lot about the Dark Blast, and then he would
right.
have another mana to potentially use another pump spell to save it.
Yeah, I suppose no real reason for Ross to end step Dark Blast when there's a Pendelhaven out.
Yeah.
Good call. That's why. Gargadon on upkeep loses a suspend counter to go down to 9. Ross now has to decide if he wants to dredge or draw. He'd love to get a land. Yeah, he'll just draw a card. Draws Shriekhorn.
Perfect. Best card in the deck.
That's how he drew it up. Oh, that card.
One more time counter off the Gargadon.
Shriekhorn. The new Shriekhorn in play, and immediately it will go to work. Bloodghast and Mana Confluence milled. Ross's lack of lands just making itself known. Unlike most lists of this we see, the Ross does not actually have any copies of Life from the Loam in his main deck.
Yeah, it does have.
Or in his board, actually. He just doesn't play it.
Does have 2 Dakmor Salvage, which he can dredge into.
Prized Amalgam will attack. And we've seen a lot of lightning of really big kills from the Dredge deck. You know, lots of amalgams early on, big boards. Ross is actually playing this game very differently.
Yeah, the tension in this game has been between these Narcomoebas and any potential attacker from D'Ambrose. Hasn't really been able to explode onto the battlefield.
Glistener Elf is going to block the prized amalgam, and Nick will make it into a 2/3. So this would shrink amalgam down to a 1/1. I guess that's better than actually killing it. With the exception that Ross can always just sack it to his Gargadon, and that's what he's going to do.
Yeah.
What lets it become a 1/1, then sacks it to Gargadon. That does mean, though, Ross's Bridge from Below's, I believe, should be exiled.
Creature hitting the graveyard for D'Ambrose would cause those to be
Right, so
exiled.
I don't know that Ross gets that zombie. No, it dies before Ross sacked.
Yeah, so things are triggered, active player, non-active player.
Well, we got to pause. There's two ways Ross can play it. Either Ross doesn't have a zombie, or Nick, and if Ross wants the zombie, then Nick gets to keep the Glistener Elf.
Yeah. Yeah, the bridge, if it's not in the graveyard when that ability resolves, you don't get a zombie there.
What's the rule? All right. Shriekhorn mills 2 more for Ross. Another Bloodghast and another fetch land. Still doesn't have that Dakmor. He's looking for a Dakmor salvage, I believe.
Yeah. The last turn he did draw naturally, which puts him further behind finding Dakmor salvage.
A little pause in here as I think that the situation with the Bridge from Below is being cleaned up. Ross now drawing. He draws the Stomping Ground he needs.
Well, there we go. Just took him 2 cracks on it.
And 3 Bloodghasts now re-enter. Okay, so why we have a zombie here is the trigger was missed, so it was immediately put on the stack when it was missed. And so the windows are a little separate.
That's weird. I think it's well beyond mattering here, though.
Yeah,
this is all just about D'Ambrose couldn't find Blighted Agent.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I don't think Ross having a 2/2 token versus not having one is going to be how this game is decided, not with the way it's been playing.
It looks like we're seeing some thinking about making
Some
these Bloodghasts
conflagrate?
have haste.
Oh, because if he conflagrates upstairs and Nick goes down to 10, they immediately gain haste, right?
Right. Chooses to play a little bit more conservative.
Oh, I like this so much more. Instead, we're just cluttering the board with really embarrassing creatures.
If you have a chance to hardcast Stinkweed Imp.
Swing for 2. Your go. I love it.
Stinkweed Imp is a solid creature in Pauper and Peasant cubes.
Oh, wow. Ross just throwing away the zombie token as Nick blocks and pumps with Pendelhaven. But on end step, Ross will get 3 amalgams back. He's milled the better part of his deck.
Yep.
And Nick looks at the board and extends the hand. So Ross Merriam, the 2 seed with Dredge, is now into the finals. He has won 4 straight games, 2 of them against Andrew Boswell's Jund. This round, he dispatches Nick D'Ambrose and Infect. 1 more match remains.
Yeah, and things just did not go the way that D'Ambrose needed them to go. And